This is the audio version of Station 1, Life and Times of Gregor Mendel. Directions. Read the following passage by yourself, then discuss the questions that follow with the group. Modern genetics begins with the work of Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk whose breeding experiments with garden peas led him to formulate the basic laws of heredity. Genetics is the scientific study of how we receive or inherit characteristics from parent to offspring. Mendel was curious about how traits were transferred from one generation to the next. In his first experiment, Mendel bred two different types of pea plants together. One set of parent plants were all tall, while the other set of parents were all short. He named this the pea generation for parent. Mendel mated a tall plant with a short plant. Mendel then counted up his pea plants and found that all of the offspring he called this F1, F stands for family, had the characteristics of one parent and were tall. He then took those tall offspring and bred them together. This meant that the brothers were mating with the sisters. It's okay because they are plants. Mendel waited another couple of years and counted up his pea plants. This time around, Mendel found a majority was tall, but in some occasions, small pea plants were created. Questions to answer. Who was Mendel? What is genetics? What did Mendel work with? Explain his experiment. Draw or act out the steps to Mendel's experiment. On the next slide, I will read to you from the textbook. Section 11.1, The Work of Gregor Mendel. Think about it. What is an inheritance? To many people, it is money or property left to them by relatives who have passed away. That kind of inheritance matters, of course, but there is a different kind that matters even more. It is something we each receive from our parents. A contribution that determines our blood type, the color of our hair, and so much more. Most people leave their money and property behind by writing a will. But what kind of inheritance makes a person's face round or their hair curly? The experiments of Gregor Mendel. Where does an organism get its unique characteristics? Every living thing, plant or animal, microbe or human being, has a set of characteristics inherited from its parent or parents. Since the beginning of recorded history, people have wanted to understand how that inheritance is passed from generation to generation. The delivery of characteristics from parent to offspring is called heredity. The scientific study of heredity, known as genetics, is the key to understanding what makes each organism unique. The modern science of genetics was founded by an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel. Mendel, shown in figure 11.1, was born in 1822 in what is now the Czech Republic. After becoming a priest, Mendel spent several years studying science and mathematics at the University of Vienna. He spent the next 14 years working on a mastery and teaching high school. In addition to his teaching duties, Mendel was in charge of the monastery garden. In this simple garden, he was to do the work that changed biology forever. Mendel carried out his work with ordinary garden peas, partly because peas are small and easy to grow. A single pea plant can produce hundreds of offspring. Today we call peas a model system. Scientists use model systems because they are convenient to study and may tell us how other organisms, including humans, actually function. By using peas, Mendel was able to carry out in just 1 or 2 growing seasons experiments that would have been impossible to do with humans, and that would have taken decades, if not centuries, to do with pigs, horses, or other large animals. The role of fertilization. When Mendel began his experiments, he knew that the male part of each flower makes pollen, which contains the plant's male reproductive cells, called sperm. Similarly, Mendel knew that the female portion of each flower produces reproductive cells called eggs. During sexual reproduction, male and female reproductive cells join in a process known as fertilization to produce a new cell. In peas, this new cell develops into a tiny embryo encased within a seed. Pea flowers are normally self-pollinating, which means that the sperm cells fertilize egg cells from within the same flower. A plant grown from a seed produced by self-pollination inherits all of its characteristics from the single plant that bore it. It has a single parent. Mendel's monastery garden had several stocks of pea plants. These plants were true breeding, meaning that if they were self-pollinating and would produce offspring identical to themselves. In other words, the traits of each successive generation would be the same. A trait is a specific characteristic such as a seed color or plant height of an individual. Many traits vary from one individual to another. For instance, one stock of Mendel's seeds produced only tall plants, while another produced only short ones. One line produced only green seeds, another produced only yellow seeds. To learn how these traits were determined, Mendel decided to cross his stocks of true breeding plants. That is, he caused one plant to reproduce with another plant. To do this, he had to prevent self-pollination. He did so by cutting away the pollen-bearing male parts of a flower. He then dusted the pollen from a different plant onto the female part of that flower, as shown in figure 11.2. This process, known as cross-pollination, produces a plant that has two different parents. Cross-pollination allowed Mendel to breed plants with traits different from those of their parents and then study the results. Mendel studied 7 different traits of pea plants. Each of these 7 traits had 2 contrasting characteristics, such as green seed color or yellow seed color. Mendel crossed plants with each of the 7 contrasting characteristics, then studied their offspring. The offspring of crosses between parents with different traits are called hybrids.